introduce him, and for some of you, you would know why, and we won't go there, but it was an interesting process to figure out how to introduce David Gregerson. I've been his partner for a long time, and in some ways you define a good partnership the same way as you would a marriage. And this is a very bittersweet time for me. I'm very happy for David. I think he's going to do a very good job when he takes the bench. If you use the past as any kind of indication of what the future will be. And where do you start in an introduction? I find it pretty interesting in this day and age. I think we have what we call as the Oprah approach to introducing judges. And by that I mean we sort of do the sort of reel of where we take you back. They were born here. These are the parents. This is the lovely wife over here, and et cetera, et cetera. And the reason I think we do something like that is so that we can evaluate who are we getting here and how is this individual going to make decisions. Now, I contrast that to something that was given to me by Judge Ladley, and I don't know if Judge Ladley is here at all, and maybe this was some foresight, but it's my grandfather swearing in Clark County on March 17th, 1955. And when Judge Ladley gave it to me, and this was several months ago, I was looking for some, at least, guidance as to how do you introduce a judge. David and I have gone to quite a few of these swearing-ins, and what was interesting, at least in this one, besides all the references to God and oh God, and I think God implicitly was at your side when you're making decisions, and I don't think maybe everything is so clear anymore. But what was interesting in 1955 was that my grandfather was introduced by his partner, and that was Mr. Wilkinson. And let me get to Mr. Wilkinson's part somewhere here, but it's on page 2 of 11 pages. And all basically Mr. Wilkinson does is he acknowledges there was a partnership, it's over, and commends my grandfather, who was a judge here, to the bar, and that he'll do a good job, and that's it. Now, for those of you who have watched a lot of the swearing-ins in the last 20 or so years, that doesn't match reality of what we do here. There are highlight films, and I think that's to give us a little more confidence that the gentleman or gentlewoman that's going to be sworn in is going to do a good job. And the thing is that even though I'm going to go through some highlights, which I think will give us some confidence, from the very beginning, I think fortunately I can assure all of you that David will be a fantastic judge. He'll do a very good job. And I look at some of the criteria, and for me, the real easy one for judges is whether or not they're going to be intelligent. Are they going to make decisions? Are they going to listen to you and be able to evaluate and apply the law? And clearly, in David's case, I don't think that's going to be a problem. He certainly had a fine education. One of the funny things was that David's parents, and it just amazes me, came to this country without formal educations. And Alf and Lily accomplished what we would say is the American dream. And it's very they were very successful, and they use what I think is some very, especially Alf. I've learned a lot from Alf over the years, and he's what we would say is salt of the earth. Very salt of the earth. But he's been helpful to us, and he's given us advice, and I think he's done a good job with his son, and so has his mother. And what they did with these people that really didn't have a full grasp of what do you do after you finish high school if you're not going to go work in the welding yard is that you're going to go off to college. And in David's case, he went to Pepperdine. For those of you who don't know where Pepperdine is, it's in Malibu, and it's a beautiful place, full of beautiful people. And mind you, David came originally from Minnehaha and on Hudson's Bay. And if you looked at the parking lot, there weren't the same kind of cars as you see set down in Pepperdine. And I'm sure you knew what a BMW was and a Mercedes, but I can tell you that David was driving a muscle car and not driving what some of the people at that school were driving. Afterwards, he of course went to Pepperdine and he did a good job there. But that's not really what interests me and really doesn't give me any, comfort as to what he's going to do. But in terms of how well he's going to do here, I think if I was going to evaluate his intelligence, I would say he certainly has an interest in life. No matter where I go, and I don't always take well to people, you know, they come up and they start discussing where they've been, and I have no idea a lot of times, but David will always extract something from the conversation and make a person feel comfortable that he's listening to them, and even somehow takes their story and relates them to his own experiences. If you're going to use any kind of example of how he organizes his thoughts, or he organizes himself, you would go, if you saw and went to his office, it looked like a nuclear bomb hit it. We didn't take clients down to where David worked because I think there would be a lack of confidence because there wasn't a lot of organization. And I had to work with him very hard on getting organized and not too successfully, but David knew where things were. So you go, where the hell did you put this? And he, oh, it's somewhere. And we would find it. The only person that I think outdoes him, and I don't know if he's here, is Ben Shafton. And for those of you who know Ben Shafton, he's got a photographic memory, and I don't know if David has one of those, but it's very similar in terms of organizing himself, because I saw some amazing things. But those, having acknowledged the importance that we always put on intelligence, for me, I like wisdom. And wisdom is important because what you do is you translate life experiences and you make practical decisions from all different kinds of fact scenarios that come before you. And Judge Johnson mentioned the common law. And common law is something we sort of developed, and we try and use it as a guide. But what's also nice is that, and I think David will like this, is that common law, if we applied it, we could probably outsource it to India, but we can't. What protects us from outsourcing the judicial jobs of everyone here is something we call equity. And equity is where you make sure that if you apply the law, that you do it fairly, and you see where there are perhaps lapses, and you do what I would say is the right thing. And for those of you who know where I practice now primarily or 100% in family law. And family law just works on the principles of equity. And those judges that I think do well understand that, and they use the law as a guide and also temper it with their own life experiences. In terms of David, we've talked a little bit about his parents and how they have succeeded. I look around out there and I see many of David's colleagues, it's always fun to see them again, but more importantly, I see a lot of his friends that over the years that I've worked with David sort of have built this rich tapestry of people that have accomplished a lot of things. And so we've seen their heartache. I've done some divorces for them. We've gone to marriages. I've heard about the poker games. An interesting thing that I don't know, John is here. I know Mark Davis was here, but they were talking about one time they're trying to get David to go off and do something in high school. Instead, David stayed home and baked a cake, or was it a pie, with his mother. I thought that was a nice thing to do, but now that I have my own high school kids and college kids, he was probably banking that so he could go off and do something else. But David is family-oriented. He understands traditions, and I think you can have confidence that he's going to take all of your problems, whether it's in family law, criminal law, real estate, and all of these things, and come up with what I think are equitable decisions. I think anytime that we do not recognize, and that's one of the things that amazes me in my grandfather's convocation, was his wife. Nowhere in here is my grandmother mentioned, and if you know anything about my grandfather, it was, I think, his relationship to his wife. She would say, she would indicate jump, and he would say how high. And David has a very neat wife. She is someone who, my wife says that we Vancouver men, and we're both Vancouver men, go out in the world, we club our women, and drag them back to our cave. I only went to Hillsborough to bring someone back. David went and found someone when he was in law school, and she's from India. And she is what we would call a princess in some respects. She has her father who flew here from India, and he argues before the Supreme Court in India. I don't quite know if they wear the wigs. You guys seem to be more English than the English. But he makes arguments that would be beyond most of anything that we do here. But he translated, I think, for his own daughter and gave her a lot of experiences. So let's see what we have here. We have a boy from Minnehaha that went to Shumway, that went to Hudson's Bay, marrying or wooing this woman that went to boarding schools in England, an all-women's school in the Northeast, and he's got to attract her enough to bring her back to Vancouver. And I am so glad that he did. She's been quite a joy to get to know, and they have produced 2 wonderful children, and I've got to see them grow up. When I look at his eldest daughter, Mira, I think I've changed your diapers. I'm sorry, but I now look at you and I go, you're just a beautiful young woman. His son is just is incredible to watch him. I didn't know you could tie a tie. And Karen is going to be something special too. In any event, I think that I'm way off on my, I hope that David continues what I have seen in his trajectory. I have seen someone with integrity, someone that I could trust. He has been an incredible friend to me, and I think he has integrity. And I think these qualities are going to give him the ability to protect people, because that's what the judges do. They protect people. Not only do they enforce the law, but they make sure people are heard. One of the ironies of the time when my grandfather was swearing in, and back then, because it's, I'm sure 20 years from now or 30 years from now, or I guess we're 50 or 70 years, but they thought that they were that they were grappling with the same concepts of justice. Well, mind you, back in 1955, my grandfather and grandmother lived in Lincoln. That's the same place where David lived. And if you look at your deeds, if any of you live in Lincoln, there are still restrictions on people of color. But yet, here we were going to be fair, and we were going to give justice to all. I think David, through his own life experiences and with his wife, is sensitive to the issue of people that need protections. And I think we are on the advent of a time where we're going to treat people more fairly and equally. And David, like Mr. Wilkinson, in 1955, we had a great partnership. Our legal partnership is over, and I commend you to the bar, and I think you'll be a fantastic judge.
Thank you, Dean. And now I will introduce Judge John Nichols to give some additional remarks from the bench in introducing our next judge.
I don't know how you follow that.
No.
Well, number one, thank you very much. It's a great crowd here. It reminds me of my family law dockets. So many people here. Listening to Dean, now I know why. Family law. But yeah, I want to thank the commissioners for letting us use this place. It is really nice over here. This is why, as judges, we always refer to this building as the Taj Mahal. And it is very nice, and we appreciate the use of the building. I also want to thank Dean for not mentioning that both Judge Johnson and I were at that convocation. I want to congratulate David, not only on his legal accomplishments, but also on his family. You have to be very proud of them. They're very successful. I haven't met them at many social occasions, followed them in Facebook, and I think it kind of reflects your family. You're successful with your family, you're going to be successful in the legal. And I think you should be just as proud as that as for your legal accomplishments. Before I get into the official welcoming segment of this, I want to dispel a little controversy that's been going on among the judges. A few ceremonies ago, we had one person, I won't name their name, I'll just use initials, Curtis. Mr. Curtis set forth that the best judges come from former prosecutors. Now, someone almost as eloquent as Art Curtis indicated that actually, if you have a civil practice, it's more of a wealth of experience and covers all areas, not just limited to criminal practice. And since David and I are both former, or soon to be former, civil attorneys, we had a big controversy of which is better. And I want to put to rest, it really doesn't matter. All of us come in here with tools, experience, perspectives, and I think the county is wealthy in having all this experience. And I think the one true measure of a good judge, maybe two measures. One is having that legal curiosity to find the right answers, and two, probably more importantly, to have experience in the landlord-tenant area. And this way, I think David would be well served. I want to welcome you to the bench, and to quote some of my favorite legal scholars, Bill and Ted, you're in for an excellent adventure. This is a great job, but it's also a very tough job. We strive to get the answers, usually over issues we know nothing about, and which I'm reminded of daily. But also we try to find these answers, get the correct answers for the correct reasons, and sometimes it's more difficult. And that's why I emphasize legal curiosity. The energy, the intelligence, the perspective, find sometimes In that endeavor, you'll have plenty to talk about. Not only from the judges, but more importantly, your staff. We all know that you have a schedule, and also you have help from your family. So if you can take the bench, don't be afraid to ask the questions. Ask the answers. Even better. You'll find the more that you learn, the more that you don't know. And with that perspective, I'm going to speak. One of the other areas is with this great job comes great responsibilities. And now you're serving a job in which you serve the public. You're judged 24/7. I know you've heard that before, but it's true. We serve the public. We're not there to serve the attorneys or to serve ourselves, but to serve the public. And you are surrounded by the public. So therefore, we're on stage all the time. There's very few occupations in which there's a camera on you at all times. I know my brother was always criticizing me about why didn't you do this, why didn't you do that, how come you're so PC? I says, how would you like it to be followed to your work every day? Usually you change the subject about that time. But some of us will accept that responsibility. It's a great responsibility. It's a great job. And it puts a lot of burden on us. But I think it's even tougher than performing legal duties. Some people accept that burden graciously and go with the job. Others look for shortcuts and go down to the track. As confident as I am with your legal abilities, I'm also confident, more confident, that you will be able to serve responsibilities and become a good reporter. Congratulations. Good luck. You all need.
I think that's, yeah. All right, I ask Dave to come forward now to be sworn. I, David Gregerson,
I, David Gregerson,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Washington, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of the office of Judge of the Superior Court, Department Number 2 of Clark County, Washington, to the best of my abilities. And I'll now ask Dave's wife and father-in-law to come forward for the aerobic. One thing you learn very fast, you take your jacket off. All right, thank you. Now I'm going to turn the mic over to Judge Gregerson for his remarks and introductions of honored guests.
Thank you so much. This is really a dream come true for a guy from Minnehaha to sit here after all these years. And I thank you so much for coming out on a snowy or cold Monday afternoon. Let me introduce first my family members here. You've heard them talked about, but first my wife Maya. My daughter Mira and my son Kieran. My father-in-law, Mr. K.M. Bhatt, who's come all the way from India. Down from Seattle, my sister Diane, who's a graduate of Hudson's Bay, 1983. her husband David, and my nephew Anders, and my niece Lena. And then my mother and father, Alf and Lily Gregerson, they're the Ridgefield family. And then two other special VIPs, at least to me. First, you've already met him here, but he's been my friend and partner and so much more, Dean. And the whole Langsdorff family, from all the decades of service and civic activity that they've done here in town. Dean's grandfather, of course, was judge in the 70s. He actually swore my parents in and gave them their oath of citizenship in 1974, if I'm not mistaken. So, finally, is Judge Ladley in here this afternoon? I don't know if I've seen him here. I wanted to give him a special thanks because at this moment for me, I've learned a lot over the years by watching really, really good lawyers and judges. And when I first came to town, Judge Ladley was, although they were all excellent in their own way, Judge Ladley to me sort of set the gold standard for excellence in terms of his rulings from the bench and the way he conducted himself. And he's probably, from my standpoint, my first and biggest example of what a judge can and should be. So thank you, Jim Ladley, if you're here. I'll see you later. Thank you. And one last introduction here. I'm pretty sure it was Abraham Lincoln who said that behind every newly sworn judge are a group of really surprised college roommates. So there's a group here, I'm not going to introduce them name by name, but they've come a long ways. There's 7 of them who have come as far away as Dallas and Arizona and whatnot. And I want to thank you guys all for coming up. For the local people, please make them feel welcome while they're here. I'm also going to ask that you not ask too many questions. That's why we have things such as statutes of limitations and other documents. Thanks, guys. And finally, I want to introduce Rhonda Stockman, who's my judicial assistant now. Rhonda, go ahead and stand up. The attorneys in town. She's the workhorse in Department 2, and she was the JA for my predecessor. And we've already started off with a really good working relationship. And if you haven't got to know her, if you're practicing in town, she's the key person to know. Like Judge Nichols said, that's where the real action is in the JA's office. So get to know her. And I also want to extend thanks and appreciation not only for myself, but I think for the community, to John Woolley, who put in some very good years of service for this community, first at the Attorney General's office, then in District Court, and then Superior Court. And I know it was a contested election, but we all join in wishing him well in retirement or whatever the next chapter of his professional career holds. So I'm just going to say a few words. I'll be much briefer than Dean. And talk to some certain groups here. First are the voters of Clark County. Second are some of my former clients who I see out here. Third are the lawyers in the legal community. And then fourth, to my new colleagues here on the bench. And I don't normally give written speeches, but I didn't want to blow this one. And so forgive me if I just read a few prepared words. To the citizens of Clark County, first and foremost, thank you for your support and confidence. I was born and raised in this community and have seen it grow and prosper and go through up and down cycles. I see many familiar faces dating back to my days in high school and some as far back as 3rd or 4th grade. Where's John? Wave your hand, John. Kurt, yeah, going way back. One of the joys of coming back and practicing law in a place like Clark County is the ability to see some of the people that you grew up with. Sometimes you see them in the courthouse, they become your clients. Sometimes you see them have their problems, some of them end up in jail, some of them become wildly successful. And one of the real joys for me in a town or in a community of 435,000 people is to be able to go out and see those people in the community on a daily basis, especially in the interactions when you have children. So I know my wife at first was skeptical about coming back to Clark County, but I think we've proved the test of time and put down our roots, and we can imagine no better place to raise our kids than a place such as here in Clark County. Now, in the course of putting my name in for election back in May, I had the opportunity to hit the campaign trail and meet some very, very good people. Some won in their races for public office, some did not. But through it all, I got a renewed confidence and faith in our system, and I salute anybody who has the courage to put their name in for consideration of public service. It means a certain amount of personal sacrifice. It means putting yourself up for ridicule and mockery sometimes, but I have a deep appreciation for anyone that goes through that. I've always believed that the court, and judges in particular, have a unique position in our system of government. Movements and ideas can come and go, but the court acts as a force of steadiness no matter what the winds may be blowing around. The independent judiciary guarantees that life, liberty, and property will never be taken without due process of law. It's a very important system, and although you can argue that the other two branches of government are sometimes proportionately dominated by the interests of the rich and the powerful, I don't think you can say that about the court, because in our courthouse, any citizen can go in front of 12 citizens from the community and have his or case heard. It's a precious right. It's not always a perfect system, but it's one that I wouldn't trade for any other in the world, and it makes us unique. As Judge Poyfair said last spring at his retirement, being a judge means that you don't always get to be Santa Claus. So sometimes you do have to make those tough rulings. And I look forward to doing my best to make sure that your cases are heard promptly, professionally, and with the utmost fairness. I told my judicial assistant, Rhonda, that I want to use the first 6 months of my tenure to set the tone for the highest standards of excellence and professionalism. And I encourage you to come to see your court system in action, and feel free to drop by Department 2. It's best if you called us before so we know you're coming. We're not involved. But please, for those of you outside the court system, that building is as much yours as it is to anyone else, and come down and see your court system in action. Now to my former clients, and I see some faces out there. I've been in a strange position since August of winding down my practice, and my appointment calendar has shrunk and shrunk and shrunk over those months, as has my inbox and my messages to return. It's a strange sensation. I imagine it must be what someone feels like when they retire. And in 20 years of practice, I will say I didn't really take the time to stop and appreciate the true beauty and elegance of the attorney-lawyer, the attorney-client relationship. And in the course of the last few months, as I've said my goodbyes and transferred my cases to clients and to others, I've found a new appreciation. So for those of you that are still practicing, take a moment and take it from me. It's something special, that professional relationship of being the trusted advisor and counselor and the spokesman for someone, either in court or out of court. So I thank you to all my former clients who are here today as well. Then to my attorney colleagues within the legal community, I've been honored to practice law here and get to know many of you personally and professionally. I see some of the faces of those against whom I've fought some pretty hard battles, and I think what's best about our profession is when we can fight hard for our clients and then still shake hands or even have a beer when it's all over. I think that's the definition of true professionalism, and it's something to which we should all aspire. Law school taught me how to do legal research and pass the bar exam, but coming to this courthouse every week for the past 20 years taught me how to be a lawyer. You can learn a lot by sitting and watching the court in action over that amount of time. I had the privilege of serving for several years on the Clark County Bar Association board and got to know many of you in that context. For the younger or newer attorneys in town, I strongly encourage you to get involved in civic activities, whether they pertain to the legal field or just for the community. When you give of yourself in that capacity, you receive back something infinitely more valuable. And now to my new colleagues on the bench, I've had the privilege of trying or arguing cases or motions in front of almost all of you over the course of these 20 years. And you each bring some piece of your own personality to the job. You have made the Clark County Superior Court bench one of the proudest and most effective in this state. And I look forward to working with you in the coming years and offering my energy and perspective as the youngest and most junior member of this team. And I hope we can find a way to continue the tradition of excellence on our Clark County Superior Court bench as we welcome in new talent to lead in the coming years. Thank you so much.
And now I turn it over to Judge James Woolley, who will make closing remarks on behalf of the.
Thank you, Barbara. I think we can all agree that the citizens of Clark County have made an excellent decision in electing Judge Gregerson as the judge. And I think they will quickly earn the privilege that citizens have to spend time. That will be adjournment. The reception schedule that you see in the agenda was prepared for you as a young hall. And Officer Joe on 65 Barnes Road. Approximately 5:30.